if there was a way. It's been said my papa, he wrote the book on catching big reds and 20-pound snook. I wish I knew all the things he knew today, for he's the reason why we are this way. And he put fishing in our souls to stay.
I prepare for a tournament the same way I would prepare for fishing tomorrow in Ozella, which I'm going to do. I know I fish for a kayak, which is a little different than most people. Most people in this room are boats, right? Yeah? Also, I am 100% inshore. I am 100% artificial unless I'm going for sheephead. For me, fishing a tournament is exactly the same way as I'm approaching where I'm going to fish tomorrow. Weather is the first thing I look at, way before tide. If it's blowing 15 out of the north and we're fishing Tampa Bay, where would you all be headed?
North Skyway.
As soon as you launch, that's where you're headed.
I would be sending the Coast Guard after you, Mike. Yeah, I would probably be headed north because it would give me some, or up into the canals, especially in the winter, because it's going to give me protection. The second thing I look at is tide. Big deal. So yeah, tides are the difference. If you have a super high tide, a super low tide first thing in the morning, with the weather that we've had lately, what would you do?
Wait.
Sleep in. Exactly, sleep in. What areas are you guys going to approach?
Mud. Oyster bars. Mud.
Rocks, oyster bars, mud, meaning dark bottoms. I live on Google Maps. So my strategy is, where can I go that I don't think anybody else will be, but the fish are going to be there. So again, I live on Google Maps. And when are the fish going to bite? Now, I tournament fish. I don't have a choice to sit there and wait. You know, if the tournament starts at 7:30, I'm pedaling at 7:32. Okay, after I take the little picture and let them know where I am. So I'm out there and I'm going, and I have a strategy. I have, and I don't know if you all do this, but ahead of time, even if I'm fishing for fun, I have the A, B, and C. So those are the pre-planning. Okay, now it's cold. Okay, being cold, as this gentleman said, things are going to go slower. Fish aren't going to be as hungry. Their metabolism is shut down. Do I still use a topwater? Absolutely. I am the topwater queen. But I always bring at least 4 rods with me that are pre-rigged. One is usually have some sort of a topwater because I want to hit all the levels of the water. So and being in the kayak, I don't have it's not as easy to change your lure and change your leader as it is in a boat or something like that. So I carry, what does Matt carry, 8 rods?
Yes. Yep. Matt with 8 rods in the back.
I have a top water, I have something in the middle, I have something on the bottom, and then I have what I call something different that I want to play with. So lately, big top waters have not been working that well. This is my top water rod. What I've downsized. I know that y'all just had a big seminar on Mirror, so I'm not going to go into detail. This is the Mirror mullet. And it's really, really little. I have to replace, and I apologize to y'all, I have to replace the hooks because you can tell on the front hook that I hooked a, 29-inch red last weekend, and it kind of straightened the hook on these. I do, and a lot of times, trade out, especially with Rapala, I trade out my trebles with owner's hooks. And this is a bass rod. But what I like about it, you'll see how light it is that, do you see where the flex is on this? If you're throwing a top water, I do not watch my top water. Look around, I look for mullet, I look at anything else, because when a fish hits, one, you can hear it, and it gives you 2 seconds because sound is slower than light speed, than your vision. And secondly, with this rod, When it goes down, kinetic energy, it's gonna flip right back up, and 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna get a self hookup. When you're using a topwater, you don't wanna set the bait hard, because a redfish has an overbite, okay? So he's gotta come up over the lure to get hooked on a topwater. That's another reason I like the Skitter Walker by Rockala, because it sits more like this as opposed to this. So when he's hitting that bottom, he doesn't have to come up as high to get hooked by that. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm pass that around. And you can see how light it is. That Fuego that's on there is by Daiwa. I've had that for 5 years now. And when I fish, I cast close to 1,000 times a day. I'm constantly casting. And that's another thing. If you're just getting out there and learning an area, don't stop. And especially when it's cold like this, I usually go straight, one to the side, in the middle, and move on. Okay? When it's cold like this, it's one straight in front of me, one here, one here, one here, one here. I kind of want to go through that zone 4 or 5 times. How many people love fishing docks? Okay, I'm going to tell you, nobody in this room is a better dock fisherman than mine. I have caught the biggest docks, the biggest sailboats, and the biggest engines in Tampa Bay. Usually my other rod, I would take it with me all the time. This is, like I said, this is one of my favorite baits for north of Yankeetown or in any canal. It's a smaller skitter walker. It's the 8 series, and it's got the orange bottom. I love it. It's small enough. It looks like when you have it on the water, it looks like a little minnow, and it's awesome. Again, my second favorite, or my other favorite reel, is the Daiwa BGMQ, and again, it's 2,500. And pass that around. And again, are you seeing how light these are? Again, if you're casting all day, a light rod and a light reel is what you want.
I have a question. Why is it the little tiny
Okay,
one there?
Anti-wind
this is a particular guide used by a lot of people that have custom rods. And what it does is when you come off of a spinning reel, your line is doing this, right? Right? This turns around and takes your line and shoots it straighter. You're going to see how small these guides are compared to the average. They're almost the size of a casting rod, meaning like a bait caster, okay? And it makes your line go straighter and you can tend to cast further. And especially now, when you're bringing everything slower, I really like scent because it just gives you a teeny, I feel, it's a confidence thing, and it gives you just a teeny tiny advantage, especially when you're just hopping something. And nobody said anything about my leaders, so I was really surprised about that. Yes, sir?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
first
it
one.
looks like about 10 inches on this one.
Yeah.
Say again?
About 10 inches, 8 inches on this one here.
Okay, my top waters, my leader is about that big, always. No more. Usually on my paddle tails, my leader is about that big. And especially if I'm using a Ned rig, which I'm going to talk about, the longer the leader, the better. The reason for that is if you're passing something on a top water, very rarely is a fish going to come at it and hit it, right? If you watch, they're coming from the side, or 9 times out of 10, they're coming from the rear. So if the water temperature is under 60 degrees, unless these fish are up north and they're used to it, but in Tampa Bay, they're not used to this temperature. So if it's under 60 degrees, they're gonna lock. And if you can find, that's another thing we didn't talk about. If you're starting and you're watching your duck finder, which I'm sure all of them tell you what the water temperature is, correct? If you can see it go from like just even a degree higher, fish that area much more than where you just came from. Because that 1 degree, or that half a degree, or that 2 degrees can make you so much more successful. Before a tournament, every single day I fish, I change my leaders. If I'm pre-fishing, you're gonna laugh at this, but if it's within 3 days of a tournament, I will take all my hooks off. How do you know if you caught a fish? How do you know? How do you know if a fish hit your lure?
Good.
If you're fishing with a rod that I call a broom handle, you won't know. But do you feel all these rods? Do you feel how sensitive these rods are that you're passing around? I can tell. I can tell if I hit the tiniest bit of grass. I can tell. So I take my hooks out, because if you're fishing for a tournament and you hook the fish today, do you think that fish is going to eat tomorrow? 9 times out of 10, no. So I take all my hooks off. The top water is the easiest. You can see I'm smashing it, right? All I want to know when I pre-fish, sometimes I don't even throw a cast. I'll just keep going. Do I flush fish out? Where are they? What temperature? What depth? I just want to know they're there. And then, you know, I'll turn around and maybe 1 or 2 do a couple throws just to see what they're going to hit. So I take my hooks off. Or I have some hooks that are just cut off.
Redfish tournaments, what pound test leader are you using?
Right now, everything you see is 25. I wanted to change them in the shop today, but we got really busy. I'm going out tomorrow with 20. Tournament, if 20 isn't working, I'll go down to 15 depending on where I'm fishing.
Floral or mono?
Yeah, that's floral carbon. That happens to be Mr. Lee's old brand, not his new brand. I love it. I use it up until 30. Once I hit 30, I use Usurium. Another thing I like a lot, I don't know if it went over last week, but I love the Little John. Frickin' love the Little John. The darker the water, the darker the lure I use. And these are awesome. I think, again, I love the owner's Swiss lock. I even on these, my paddle tails, everything, I use usually the owner's Swiss lock, because I can do it weedless and I can do it rockless. Okay, these are great. They're already scented, so you really don't need anything on them. I live and die by a spoon also. If you have not used a spoon, try it. 90% of the failure with the spoon is you move it too fast. Slow it down. I like my spoon to do this. I'll throw it out there, let it wobble down. Pop it, let it wobble down. Bring it in about that far, pop it, let it wobble down. It looks so much like a wounded fish. And then also in the summer, how many, have you looked down in the water and see what looks like Christmas lights going on and off? That's a perfect time to use a spoon, especially a silver or gold spoon, because that mimics a bait fish so well. Yes, sir?
Do you use a swivel?
No, that's a great question. The reason I don't use a swivel is I don't move my spoon that fast. I don't allow my spoon to do this. My spoon does that.
When you pop it up, do you leave it slack or keep the line a little tight as it wobbles down?
I let it slack. Once it hits the bottom, I'll tighten it and pop it again, or I'll bring it in.
Or when you pop it, do you give it slack and it just pops anyway? Or
When it hits the bottom, I'll tighten it up, and I'll pop it, and I'll let it swivel down, and then I'll tighten it.
Okay, so it's just loose.
Exactly, exactly. I want them to hit it and go with it. Okay, I know Lisa Fitzgerald from CCA, she sometimes will tie a little bit of yarn, red yarn, at the back end of her her spoon and put a little Procure on it. That's another thing. If you ever travel anywhere, always go into a mom and pop store. The heck with the big box stores. Go into a mom and pop store. Let them know you're not from the area. What do they suggest? And the lady said, well, you gotta try these. These are made out of Texas. I have been killing with these. Absolutely killing with these. These are called bugs. And again, this time of year, these are awesome. I also know we were the first to bring them in. Tampa Fishing Outfitters was the first to bring them in. 2 months later, all of a sudden I see CA with his videos. Oh, you're gonna try bugs. Anyhow, these are great. These are really good. Okay, I'm not patting you guys on the back. This is what I won the tournament with 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And it was so funny. Matt said, what were you using? I said this. I said this. He goes, come on. I go, Matt, why weren't you using it? But this is what I was using. This is the color I was using. This is exactly what I was using. And I threw it out there, let it settle down, popped it up, let it settle down, popped it up, wham. Louisiana and Texas both have done something that Florida did years ago, and Florida is now starting to do again, is both states have a redevelopment or repopulation, okay? They breed them and put them back in. We've only started to do that with Duke Energy and CCA because of the red tides that we had year after year after year, okay? I think we have a conservation in our blood. If you ever have a chance to put your 2 cents in, you know, anytime we can do and repopulate and get fish back in there, you know, things will sort that.
It's been said my papa, he wrote the book on catching big reds and 20-pound snook. I wish I knew all the things he knew today. For he's the reason why we are this way. And he put fishing in our soul.